very warm welcome. We have been looking so much forward to this, and we are very keen on giving you a chance to get our two funding mechanisms to know better. Also, we're a bit nervous, but that's just cool. The team that will guide you through this coming hour consists of me. My name is Henrik Underbjerg. I'm working in for the New Democracy Fund as part of IMS, and it is IMS that are handling the two funding mechanisms. Together, we also have our fund manager, Ragnar, who will be joining us and explain more in detail later. And also we have Anna, and Anna maybe say something about how we're going to handle the Q&A.
Sure. Hi, everyone. The way you proceed, if you have a question throughout the session, use the Q&A tool here in Zoom. So you're more than welcome to ask a question there, and then we will try to answer as thoroughly as possible. There is also the opportunity to vote or like a question raised by another person, and then we will prioritize the most popular questions in the second session. Some of the questions will be answered, we will write the answer to you, and some will be answered by Henrik or Ragnar here in the session. So please use the Q&A here on Zoom, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Thank you.
And how many people are joining the session as of now?
Yes, sorry, right now I can see that 126 people are joining us right now, 127 actually. So more than 260 people signed up for this event. And as mentioned, 227 people are attending right now. So thank you so much for the interest.
Thanks a lot for this. And also, I just wanted to tell you all that this webinar will be recorded and it will be published on the website. So you can see there, or if you have colleagues that needs to see what questions and comments has been answered, so please refer to the website. And also, of course, I would like to underline that you can follow the New Democracy Fund on social media, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and the newsletter, etc. But I guess you're all familiar with that as you are here. So I'll just start sharing my screen here and walk you through sort of the fundamentals of the New Democracy Fund to get you an overview of what we are put in the world to do. Oh yeah, I just wanted to say as well that this session, this webinar will take an hour, and we will stop sharply at 2 o'clock. And yeah, good. So I just need to figure out how to navigate this. It's coming here. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to walk you through how the New Democracy Fund works, and especially the two funding mechanisms, which is the topic of today. But we just want to say some words about what the New Democracy Fund is, how it works, and why we are put in the world. And then we move more into detail and talk about the good application and the assessment criteria that we use from here. And also we'll walk you a bit through the process from how to apply to the final reporting and the resources and things that you should be aware of in that whole process. And after that, we'll go into the Q&A and see what questions that have piled up and has been voted to. So we'll get to that later. So first of all, the New Democracy Fund is put in the world to enforce the civil society in what is coined as the European neighborhood countries, which consist of Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. And it is funded by the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as they want to engage with civil society in the region and also engage Danish civil society organizations into the region, but also interregional. Sorry for the confusion here. We do this because we think that the civil society play a central role to development of democracies all around the world, not only in Eastern Europe. And also we see that that is not only a one-sided thing that we're doing here. It's not just, Denmark, let us show you how good we are and everything. I think that the Democracy Fund has been in the world for 2 years now, and we really see that there's so much we can learn in the Danish civil society from working with our partners in the Eastern neighborhood countries. So the fund, the New Democracy Fund, is based on core values like prosperity, equality, rights, and peace, and it is covering 5 themes that are sort of demonstrated here to the right on the slide. So if you see the civil society altogether, we have some axes that are going through there. We have youth, for instance, we have labor market, we have green and just transition, which of course is another word of saying climate and environment. We have media and we have culture. So this is a broad sort of palette of core themes in civil society, and of course they are cross-cutting things like equality, like inclusion, like gender, etc. So the New Democracy Fund is run by a consortium. You can see the logos underneath here. And the consortium of 5 Danish organizations represents more or less the 5 themes that we work with in the New Democracy Fund. To start from the left, we have the Danish Cultural Institute, which is the lead organization in the consortium. We have 3F, which is the largest labor market union, largest union in Denmark. We have DI, Danish Industry, which is the Danish Federation of Industries, the largest employers organization in Denmark. We have Danish Youth Council and IMS, which is the organization that handles the funds as of now. So you can also see that we work with very different sort of intersections into civil society, and hopefully also as a consortium include are very inclusive ourselves and very diverse. What can I say here? That what we want to support here is civil, independent, and what you call diverse and resilient civil society, and we'll do that with institutions that engage, and also peer-to-peer exchange of experiences with civil society actors in the Eastern Europe, Eastern neighborhood countries, sorry, and in Denmark. And we see that many of the very sort of effective ways to that actors today can create social changes is to engage in partnerships, alliances, and networks. And this is what we're trying to support through the funding mechanisms that we have here. I'll come into more detail about that. So the New Democracy Fund works in 3 different modalities. First of all, we have direct partnerships. That is the 5 organizations in the consortium who work strategically with partners in the European neighborhood countries. So that is the consortium partners working directly with partners in the ENC. And then what we are here for to talk about today is that we have the flexible response mechanism and the new cooperation mechanism. And these represent 2 modalities that are different. And we will work with the differences, but also the goals are more or less the same, or many of the underlying mechanisms are the same. So that's why we have them piled together here in this session. The flexible, the flexible response mechanism is an invitation to civil society actors in Eastern neighborhood countries to engage with the New Democracy Fund. And we will provide through the fund some timely and critical financial resources and capacity development to mainly take advantage of windows of opportunities. So this is in the first 2 years of the New Democracy Fund, this was called Rapid Response Fund. We changed it to Flexible Response Mechanism because rapid response has this connotation that is very focused on individuals in danger, which was not the main focus of this mechanism. The main focus is instead that if changes happens, then you know, in the political landscape or a strengthening civil society, a space for civil society, then this mechanism should provide timely and quick funds for organizations and civil society actors to respond to these changes. So what you call the eligible, no, let me see, did I make a slide here? I think I did. Here we are. We're diving into the flexible response mechanism. So the eligible actions that it's all described in our guidelines, of course, but the resources could go to organizations that counter restrictions and human rights abuses, to overcome risk and emergencies and reclaim civil space, or it could be used to utilize windows of opportunities if there is a political opening, for instance, an election or what have you. And thirdly, it could also provide emergency assistance funds to individuals and groups under threat. But this is done mainly through other organizations that deals with individuals. So we haven't supported directly to individuals. That will always go through organizations in the ENC. And the applicants could be all kinds of civil society actors in the Eastern Neighborhood countries or temporarily in exile, because we know the situation, for instance, in Belarus / Azerbaijan can be very difficult for some kind of civil society organizations. So we also accept that actors in exile can apply. And the funding can be applied for on a rolling basis. And what is important here is that the support from the flexible response mechanism will be channeled through a Danish partner. And I want to dive in a little bit into that because that might sound a bit difficult to understand. But this is a demand made by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that wanted to ensure that the New Democracy Fund is not exhausted by vetting a lot of partners whom we perhaps don't know, but instead partners from organizations from the ENC who have worked with Danish organizations before can use that Danish organization to channel their funding. So this gives a sort of a vetting mechanism into the fund. I hope that makes sense. Otherwise, you'll, of course, after I've been through it all, you'll just file a question in the chat here that comes. Right, I'll jump on to the new cooperation mechanism, which is the modality where Danish organizations can apply in partnership with organizations in the European neighborhood countries. You can apply in two ways. You can apply for a small amount under 150,000 Danish crowns, which equals something like 20,000 euros, I think. And that could be even without a partner, but for Danish organizations to make feasibility studies, to perform partner search, research, stuff like that. And you can also apply for the projects in established partnerships up to 1.2 million Danish crowns, which equals, would that be 150,000 euros, give and take. Sorry if I make some small mistakes in the calculations here. What the aim here is to create a space where civil society actors can work together and discover new ways of working together, or expanding existing partnerships, or develop new ones, all connecting civil society actors in Denmark and the European neighborhood countries. And the eligible actions are, they should be within the 5 themes and the cross-cutting values that we have mentioned before. And it is actually some kind of a playground. We don't say that there's nothing that you cannot do, but we emphasize, of course, the themes that we have, and also the cross-cutting thing, gender inclusion, human rights, etc. And of course, this is could be a very good opportunity for Danish organizations in partnership with Eastern Europeans to break new ground, or create synergy, or figure out new ways of working together. So we look at very much at sort of the depth of the partnership. How good are we? What are the ambition in terms of working together? Are we looking into some kind of sustainable cooperation between organizations in Denmark and the ENC that could continue also after the funding stops from the new cooperation mechanism, even after the project is done? And this mechanism can be applied for by Danish civil society actors registered in Denmark, and they should be in partnership on the bigger scheme, the 1.2 million scheme, together with 1 or more partners in the ENC, and make a joint application. The Danish partner is a lead applicant and have the administrative responsibility in this case. Then I will give over the word to my good colleague Ragnar, who will walk you through the assessment criteria that we look into once we get the application. But maybe we'll just say a little bit, Ragnar, on who will perform this. And I know it is overlapping a little bit with the process, but just to make sure that people understand how it works.
Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Henrik. Good start. I was trying to answer some of the questions in the chat. I hope it reached out to some of you asking. Yes, so now we're coming to kind of what we are assessing when we get the applications from you. Yes, overlapping a little bit with the process, we have 2 teams that will evaluate. We have an assessment team consisting of experts within the 5 organizations that are the New Democracy Fund. They are all representing their particular thematic area, and they will be doing the assessing and scoring. Then we will collect the assessments and scoring and give them to our independent selection committee. And the independent selection committee consists of experts within the area of the New Democracy Fund. But they are independent, they are not representing an organization. And they will make the final evaluation and the approval or rejection of the application. Yes, so what does a good application entail? It should be written to be understood by the reader, and the reader is not necessarily a specialist in the particular thematic area you are applying to or applying for. We have made the application form to help the applicants in guiding them to make this good the application in a way that they reflect on all the questions that the reader or the assessor or the member of the selection committee might need answers to. So now I will just go to the specific assessment criteria we have. And the assessment criteria are for the flexible response mechanism and for the new cooperation mechanism. They are somewhat the same, but we have a more focus, of course, on the urgency of the action and the need of the action in the flexible response mechanism, and more focus on the partnership, the quality of the partnership in the new cooperation mechanism. So starting with the need and the urgency of the action. Here, what you need to focus on is why this action is urgent at this moment. Could it be implemented at another time? For example, 2 years ago. Why is it urgent right now? What is the political landscape? Or have there been any changes? Are there worrying trends? Or there election coming up? Is there a conflict or a risk of conflict? Or have there been changes in government in a positive way for the democratic development? This is only for the flexible response mechanism. For the new cooperation mechanism, we are looking at the quality of the partnership. Is the application written in partnership, or is it only written by one of the partners? We want to contribute to a sustainable, lasting cooperations between civil society partners in Denmark and the countries in the Eastern European neighborhood, or the Eastern neighborhood countries. We are looking at innovative ideas, and the applicant must demonstrate that they strive towards this. They want to establish this long-lasting cooperation, which goes beyond traditional development assistance. Then I will go to the next one, which is action recognized by the defined target group as relevant. Does the application analyze and address the needs of the target group in this context? Is it described and justified in the application? And the next one, the applicant's team's experience with the relevant themes. Has the team organization implemented other projects that focus on this thematic area you're applying for? And then we will go to the integration of human rights-based approach, gender aspects and inclusion, etc. Does the application take into account human rights-based approach? Does it include gender-related issues, LGBTQ+ groups, religious minority groups, people with disabilities, and other marginalized groups? How will they benefit from the project and how will they be involved? And then we come to the intervention logic. This one we get a lot of questions on. Is there coherence in the intervention logic? So here we're looking at, does the applicant elaborate and explain this overall change process of the action? What makes us think that the change we desire will happen? What steps are taken and what are the expected results? Here it's important to explain more in detail about deliverables that will lead to the desired results of this intervention. And we are aware that the context we are working in is changing rapidly, and therefore it can be adjusted underway, so you don't have to be accountable for the results you describe in the application. This can be, if granted, this can be adjusted. And this will be monitored and evaluated in the interim reporting as well. And I just wanted to come with a very simple example of an intervention logic that we might look at. And that could be that we have defined a problem. The problem could be, now I just take media as example. Media portrays women in a stereotypical manner. We have one output: selected journalists attend training on gender sensitive reporting. We have another output: journalists from the training receive funds to produce content. And then we have a desired results: journalists report in a more gender sensitive way. So this is measured by monitoring the content produced and by asking the journalist how they have applied their new knowledge. And this was but just a very simple example to give you some ideas for those who are not comfortable with this term of intervention logic. Yes, then we go to the next one, which is additionality and relevance to other similar intervention and avoidance of duplication. So are there any other actors doing the same as the applicant is suggesting in their proposal? Is it possible to cooperate with our other implementing actors? And in the new cooperation mechanism, an emphasis will be put on synergies with other relevant actions, also including the new Democracy Fund direct partnerships track. And then we will come to risk assessment and including safety. Taking this specific context into consideration, here we are asking you to please assess the risks that are involved in implementing the project. Both internal and external risks should be assessed, and the impact on the project should also be elaborated. Safety measures should also be reflected, especially for staff and people directly involved in the activities. An example could be from, for example, from the flexible response mechanism, could be evacuating staff from one place to another during conflict. So this action should be include a very thorough risk assessment and safety measures. The next one is prospects of sustainability. For the flexible response mechanism, we don't necessarily expect that the project or the action lives up to this criteria, as we know that it can be various project proposals we will get here. But for the new cooperation mechanism, we are looking at prospects for sustainability of the partnership and the project, and this should be reflected in the application as well. The experience of the applicant team, the next one. Here we are asking you to describe the team involved in the action. If it's for the new cooperation mechanism, we both want the Danish applicant and the partners to be listed, and we want to have one leading program manager. And if there is or any safety reasons where you cannot list names of staff members, that is completely fine. We don't request this if it's sensitive information. We also would like you to include if there is finance staff directly involved or other staff involved in the project. And for the budget transparency, this is also quite important, because you need to remember to include all project related costs, and it should be presented transparently, and it should correspond to the outputs explained in the application. All costs should be reasonable and justifiable, and if the action is partly co-funded or self-funded, this should also be presented in the application and in the budget. With that said, I also want to point out that even if the application receives an overall high score from the assessment team, it could be rejected by the selection committee. For example, if an application takes place in a hostile environment and it completely fails to address any risks and safety measures in the application, it could possibly be rejected by the selection committee. The selection committee seeks to have an even distribution between countries and thematic areas to the extent possible. So going to the process of applying. We ask you always to read the guidelines, because in the guidelines we have answers to many of the questions you have, also in terms of project period, size of the grants, how many can apply, what are the eligible actions, eligible applicants, etc. So please get acquainted with the guidelines. For the flexible response, we have a rolling deadline. So you can submit an application to our email address, as you can see on the slide. For the new cooperation, we have in 2023 2 calls for application. We have the first deadline already announced, 14th of May, and we expect another deadline to be in the fall. And here you submit it to the email address for the new cooperation mechanism. All applications will go through eligibility check, and you will receive a you will receive an email from the grant administration if we need some additional information to be able to perform the eligibility check. Application is assessed and scored by the assessment team, then it is sent to the independent selection committee that evaluates and makes final prioritization and approvals and rejections. All of this, the process could take 4 to 6 weeks, and in the flexible response mechanism, all approved applications will also be sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark for a no objection procedure. So 4 to 6 weeks, not taking into account bank holidays in Denmark. So it could be longer, for example, in May, where we have a lot of these bank holidays. But in flexible response, we always try to make it as quickly as possible. But we do have this processing time, for 4 to 6 weeks in some cases. Yeah. And then what happens when you have been through the process of being assessed and scored and have been through the selection committee? All applicants will receive feedback email, even if it's rejected or approved. You will receive the assessment and scoring. This might help you in fundraising for another fund, or if you want to reapply, you're welcome to make a complaint if you have been rejected. The complaints procedure is also explained in the guidelines and in the email you will receive if you have been rejected. All approved applicants will be invited for a contracting information meeting with the grant administration, and the applicant could and should prepare for going through the capacity assessment. This is if relevant. This is depending on the size of the grant. Yes, so on the next, going through to awarding. What happens when you have been awarded? Yes, we have talked about the capacity assessment. This will be done in parallel of making the contracting documents ready. So when we have this all in place, we will sign the contract and the implementation can start. When the contract has been signed, the first payment will be transferred to the grantee. And upon approval of interim reporting, the second payment will be made to the grantee, and depending on the size of the grant, we will ask for an audit report at the end of the project period. And then we will close the contract when we have approved all deliverables. And the final payment will be made after approval of the final reporting. So the grantees should, in some cases, be willing to pay for the last 10% in advance, and then we will refund this payment at the end of the project when we have approved the deliverables. So what is good to have in mind when preparing for a project? We have made templates ready for you on the New Democracy Fund website that you can use if you want. For example, a work plan template is good to use. We have in the contract itself all important deadlines, all deliverables and requirements that you need to know. And you should always, of course, read the contract very well before signing it and plan well ahead in terms of reporting deadlines, and preferably book them in your calendar. You can contact the grant administration when you are implementing the project if there are any changes or challenges during the implementation. We are happy to assist, and we of course help with adjusting plans when needed. But as we can be also very busy, it's good to plan ahead and not wait until the end of the project period to report these challenges. You need to engage with auditors and controllers at the beginning of the project, and we will request this also in the contracting period. So yes, that was it for me. Then we are through to the questions, right?
No, also maybe I could just, thank you. I just wanted to underline that it is a good idea if you get granted that you walk through the process with the auditors before you sign the contract to make sure that every step is understood It is not that we try to be very, very rigid or stupid, but we are reporting back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they are sometimes very, very rigid. So we are put in the world to help you do that. But a great part of that is also that you, together with the auditor and in the team, figure out how you're going to go about these different reporting steps before you sign the contract. That is very important, I think. So I'll just stop sharing here, and we can go to we can go to the questions.
Yes, one of the questions who's been upvoted the most is this: what are those exclusive cases when an applicant can apply without a Danish organization as a partner?
Maybe I should try and answer that. We get this question very often. It is only in exceptional cases that people can apply without a Danish partner. I think we have done one exception in the past 2 years. We have been working with this, and that was very, very early. I think it actually was the first project that were supported in 2021. I think that what is important is that there must be a very, very solid reason for that. There must be a justification that you file alongside the application. It's not that you cannot find one, or it should be more profound than that. It should really be exceptional, because otherwise, I mean, there are plenty of civil society organizations in Denmark, and we are working to make it easier for Danish organizations to engage in the flexible response mechanism. But basically, we would need a thorough justification, and we will handle requests on a case-to-case basis.
Yes, and the next question is: can an organization from EP apply to both flexible response and new cooperation?
That's easy, yes. Actually, remember the difference between it. The Flexible Response Fund can be applied directly from Eastern European organization, and the money will be channeled through a Danish organization. The other one, in the new cooperation mechanism, the applicant is a Danish organization. So basically, the no means the yes means actually no, but the same, let's say, two partners, the Danish partner can apply for the new cooperation fund, and the ENC partner can apply for the flexible response fund, given that this is two different projects. It could happen that way. It's not impossible. We haven't seen it so far, but in theory it is possible.
And the next question is: how can we identify and contact Danish partner organizations?
It is written a bit rigid in what we have on writing from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It says that that the Flexible Response Fund can be given to an organization, ENC, who has an actual or a previous partnership with Danish organizations. This means that basically it limits off those who have not been working with Danish organizations, unless that you start that cooperation and then go to the flexible response mechanism. So basically it's a matter of figuring out what would be interesting for you, what kind of organization would be interesting for you to work with, and you can reach out to us, and we can. I don't want to pretend that we can match make, but at least we have a very large network of Danish organizations, and we can hopefully point you in a direction for the next step, so to speak, in figuring out how to partner up with a Danish organization.
And here's a question regarding if one understood you correctly when mentioned that the small grant below 150,000 Danish kroner can be done with without a Danish partner?
It can be done without a partner in the ENC. It could be applied for by a Danish organization that wants to establish a partnership in the ENC, and they can apply, you know, to make feasibility studies, partner search, etc. But it cannot be applied by organizations in the ENC.
Yes, and the next question is, there is 3 questions in one here. What is the maximum period of a project?
Yes, the maximum period, it should preferably not be more than 1 year. We have kept it at 1 year. So if you're applying now on the 14th of May, you can apply, for example, from 1st of August to 1st of August next year. That is possible. In the flexible response, we have not received many applications that have been up to 1 year. So that kind of is more easy to answer. But yeah, maximum 1 year.
Great. And the next question is from the same person. As the Danish partner is responsible for the audit, we understand the auditor must be Danish. In that case, the ENC partner must provide original receipts and contracts. Is that correct? And what about translation of these documents? Shall the costs of translation be included in?
Yes, I can answer that. And yes, you will have to collect documentation for all expenses made with the funds we have. That's a requirement. All documentation for salaries and expenses, both in Denmark and in the ENC. And for the translation, yes, it can also be budgeted.
Maybe I could add here that you can actually also include translation of the application into your budget, so that it is eligible cost if you get granted. So it's just, you know, in order to make the funds more accessible. So that is an option as well.
And then the last question from the same person: is the Danish partner supposed to actually pay for each project expense from its account?
Yeah, it is. If it's in the new cooperation mechanism, it is the responsibility of the lead organization, which is the Danish organizations, yes, to control this, to have this financial management under control. That is, they can make agreements with their partners, but the agreement they make with their partners should reflect the agreement they have with us. So yes, they are overall responsible for the expenses and the monitoring of the expenses. I hope that was somehow.
But maybe, but maybe I could add that it is the partners, of course, can agree that money will be transferred to the partner in the ENC in installments and not on a cost-by-cost basis. So you can actually put out installments, get a bunch of receipts, put out the next installments, however you want to figure it out. So we don't decide how you do that, as long as it applies with the auditor's guidelines.
Yes, then another question: is it possible for Ukrainian independent media outlets or non-governmental organizations to apply for grants on their own without needing to form any partnerships?
Not at the offset, no. It is it's the same question as in what cases can you apply without a Danish partner, without a Danish channeling organization in the flexible response mechanism. And if you want to apply without a Danish channeling organization, then you should have a strong justification, and it will be treated on a case-to-case basis as I mentioned before.
And then flexible response. If the project is for more than 200,000 kroners, can we include the auditor expenses for the Danish partner in the budget?
Yes, that should be possible, yeah. How the audit is performed, if it's performed in one of the countries being implemented, where the project is being implemented, is also okay, as long as we can verify and approve the auditors. And it's also okay that the audit will be performed in Denmark by a Danish auditor. We will just need to approve it before. And that is something we will talk about in the contracting phase when the application has been granted. This will be one of the things we will take up in our meeting with the grantees.
Can the project funded by the new cooperation mechanism be executed in Denmark or only in the ENC, in the Eastern Neighborhood countries, or both is possible?
Both is possible. I mean, the new cooperation mechanism would typically include spending in Denmark and spending in the partners countries. So that is possible. It's it is not possible in the offset in the flexible response mechanism, but of course in the new cooperation mechanism it is.
What is the length of the flexible response mechanism, and is it only possible with existing partnerships or also new partnerships?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What is the length? Is that the project length? It could be, let's say it is the length of the project. It has, in flexible response, it has typically been around half a year or a couple of months, because it's in the nature that the funding used to new opportunities. What was the second part of the question? Is it only possible with the existing partnerships or with new partnerships? I think that we are very open to new partnerships as well. So I think that definitely go for that. If you have existing partnerships or former partnerships, don't fix it if it works. But in any case, I think it's a good idea to rather come in with a new partnership instead of figuring out a justification of how to avoid a Danish partnership or a channeling organization, as it is called. Hope that makes sense.
And then we have another question. Can you, the New Democracy Fund, provide a list of friendly Danish organizations who can perform as a partner? We can help with that.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out because we, as a state funded entity or consortium, I fear it sometimes could be. I'm just talking straight here. I fear it could be difficult space to go into, as we then would risk of excluding organizations based on nothing, because we're not able to make a full scan of the Danish civil society environment, because the civil society actors are defined very broadly. I mean, very, very broadly. It could be high schools, it could be churches, it could be scout organizations, it could be, so it is real difficult, to figure out, to make a short list of Danish organizations without discriminating anyone, and of course that would make them irritated. So I think the other way, instead of doing this sort of deductive approach to make an inductive approach and say, well, who would be the perfect partner for us in this situation? Then start scanning, then see, oh, there are some there. Could it be you, or would you advise us to go somewhere else? And it can, of course, take some phone calls, but I think it is very much a good idea to do that, so to find the right partner rather than to force yourself into a cooperation that sometimes can show up to be not so fruitful in the longer term because you entered the partnership too quickly.
What is the second deadline for new cooperation mechanism? As the first is here in May 14th, but what is the second?
Yes, we haven't announced the second deadline yet. We are aiming at late summer or fall 2023. So just keep looking at or follow us on the social media and on the website where it will be announced. And the newsletter, yes.
Is there any limit for the number of is there any limit for the number of partners, minimum or maximum? How many partnerships within the call are allowed for one organization as a lead and co-partner?
At least one, and the rest is free play. That goes for new cooperation fund. So you can engage with 100 partners if you want to, but at least just one.
Will projects with co-financing from other sources be prioritized, or projects without for applicants for more than 150,000 kroner?
None of the two. Both applications will be treated as is, but it's just important that the assessment team and the selection committee knows that others are involved in the project and what kind of deal structure there is around that. But it's not that that we would prefer one model over the other. It is more that we just need to ensure that we have the full picture when we support, rather than just support a corner of an already existing project. Then we need to see sort of the whole picture. So that's the reason why it's there.
I think we already had maybe touched upon this topic, but there is once again a question regarding if it's possible to include audit costs in the project costs.
Yes, and it should be included for all applications exceeding 200,000 Danish kroner. It should be included the audit costs.
Time is running, 3 minutes left, so I think we can manage one more question and then we will try to answer you. We will write the answers to you in the chat after the webinar. If our partner is a well-known Danish filmmaker who doesn't have an established NGO in Denmark, can we apply to the new cooperation mechanism on the basis of our NGO from the Eastern Neighborhood countries?
No. You can add, it should be Danish organizations that apply, not individuals. Sorry, we cannot do that. Of course, the filmmaker can join up with a Danish organization, and in broader terms, this could also, of course, include production companies, as production companies they are LLCs, but still limited liability companies in many cases. But still, they are within what we define as civil society actors, just like media is. But unfortunately, no, you cannot apply as an individual, even though it's set up with an NGO or whatever in the Eastern Neighborhood countries.
Do we have time? One more question? Maybe one last one then. Okay. There was a question if we could elaborate a bit on the capacity assessment.
Yes, we can do that. In what we mean by capacity assessment, it is looking at the lead organization, the applicant organization, is it, and the size of the grant, and how much are they able to work within the requirements of the fund? Have they worked with public funds, for example, like Danida funds before? And how, and it's also in terms of installments and reporting and monitoring. This is what we are looking at when we are doing capacity assessments. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I could add here, just make it clear, because as Ragnar said, this has to do with installments, etc. It has to do with the level of control mechanisms that the funds should apply to a grantee. A grantee with low capacity will have a stronger monitoring from our side, while an organization with high capacity get lesser and can, because they got more procedures in place. So it's a more regulation of the level of monitoring, etc., that the mechanism should do, that we should do from the New Democracy Fund side. But time is up. Thanks a lot for being here and sticking out for so long. And as Anna told you, we'll try and answer the questions that you have here, and also we encourage you just to reach out and get in touch with us. Hopefully we won't have 200 emails a day, but if we do, we'll let you know that we have a little backlash on our response time, but we'll try to respond as fast as possible. So thanks a lot for your time. Really looking forward to working with you. I hope that it will work with most of you. Thanks a lot for today, and thanks to Anna and to Ragnar.